Welcome to 4th and 1. Whew. I'm Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. Take a deep breath, everybody. The Chiefs are 4-0. They got out of the Motor City with a win. It was ugly. Would you go so far as to say it was a pretty heinous-looking win? Or are all wins beautiful in your eyes, Nick?
They won the game. It wasn't pretty, but the bigger concern I have is how many Coldplay T-shirts do you have? 'Cause this is the second one I've seen.
Are we counting ones that I have retired into, like, the land of mowing the lawn?
I'm just curious. I didn't know people actually own Coldplay T-shirts.
I think I own like 4. I get one at every concert I go to.
Okay. You know how many concerts that is compared to me?
A Coldplay?
Yeah.
Probably 5 more because I've been to 5 shows.
And then how many concerts do you think I've been to in general?
Oh, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4th grade, Garth Brooks concert, Kemper Arena.
Oh, was it that's not what I would have picked?
That's the only one I've ever been to.
All right. I would have picked, like, I don't know, Insane Clown Posse.
Garth Brooks is the only one I've been to in 4th grade.
I saw Garth Brooks. It was not in 4th grade, though.
Well, congrats.
My wife is big into country music. I took her, I don't know, when he was at the Sprint Center one of those times.
I apologize for redirecting this conversation, but I just noticed the Coldplay T-shirt. And
I've said it a million times.
Like
I get really tired of how often you just derail this podcast. Like, people come to listen to us talk about Chiefs, not for you to just, like, randomly, like, go off the rails about concerts and stuff, Nick. Come on.
Okay.
Get it together.
All right, I'll try to.
Get it together.
I'll try to get it together like the Chiefs.
So, hey, first of all, I want to talk about unrealistic expectations here because big picture is the Chiefs won. They went on the road against a team that was undefeated. You can say what you want. I mean, look, they had a win over the Chargers. The Chargers flexed a little bit today. Granted, it was against Miami, but still.
I was going to say, is that really flexing?
Well, I mean, look, they handled them like they should, and not everybody's done that. I mean, Miami played with Dallas in Dallas the week before, and they hung around a little bit in the first half with the Chargers, but second half the Chargers put the hammer down, and that's what you expect a decent team to do against the dregs of the NFL. You expect them to put the hammer down. This is a Detroit team that won a game against that same team. So maybe this Detroit team's a little bit better than people thought coming in. They certainly were a little more physical than I thought they would be. Their defense held up a lot better. Patrick Mahomes goes 24-42 for 315 yards, doesn't throw a touchdown for only the 3rd time in the regular season. Can you name the other 2 times?
Yeah. Yeah, you want me to?
You should be able to. I would hope you can.
Yes, I can name them.
All right. Well, Jacksonville, and then his first start ever.
Okay, I was going to name them, but you said no.
What's the other game he didn't throw a
It
touchdown
should be the
in?
Jacksonville Jaguars game and the Denver Broncos game on Monday Night Football.
No, it's his first game ever. Didn't he throw 0 touchdowns, 1 interception in that start in Denver?
Oh, you're talking about that. Okay, you're talking about way back then.
Well, I said his career starts.
Okay.
That one counts, right?
It does, but yeah, no, you've tried to brainwash me into considering that play doesn't. Doesn't exist.
We should do a name that Chief.
No,
I would totally own you today.
Yeah, okay.
But look, I mean, by most NFL standards,
Wait, I said Broncos.
But you said the Monday night game. By most NFL standards, that would be a pretty good stat line. You go on the road, you get a victory. But I think people. Do you think Patrick Mahomes played poorly today?
No, he didn't. Some other people around him didn't have ideal games, and they struggled with the scheme they were going against today.
So how did this Detroit Lions team slow down the Chiefs? Because obviously, we're used to Mahomes throwing at least 2, usually 3 touchdowns in a game. So they were able to keep him in check a little bit. Mm-hmm. But again, I think part of that is the unrealistic expectations people have come to have for the reigning MVP.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to give it to you in a couple folds. So here's the first section of it. The first way that the Detroit Lions did it is essentially they copied a lot of the New England game plan from last year when Belichick was going against Patrick Mahomes. So in the first aspect of it, they kept either one safety about 20 to 27 yards deep, and then sometimes they kept 2 safeties that deep. So they were taking away the explosive plays because they knew those were going to have to develop quickly. They knew those were going to take time to develop. So they were letting you have anything that was quick underneath. They were going to let that happen. So by safeties playing that deep, they were counting on their pass rush to be able to get there. The other key part of it is they had the corners pressing a lot more than I remember in some of the games they were doing that I'd watched on in the when I was putting together my scouting report, they did a lot more press coverage to disrupt the timing. So I think that kind of disrupted McCole Hardman because I know against press he's still learning how to beat that.
Little guy.
Watkins is one of the better ones, and then Robinson is still kind of learning the nuances of some parts of that. So that was the first.
In key spots, they also got real physical with Kelsey when he was, especially when he was tight to the line.
That was my next point.
My bad.
So they pressed the receivers at that point. So that was the next thing on their list. Then the third thing on their list is whether it was Kelsey or I couldn't tell on Watkins, but I will be able to on the coaches film on Tuesday. But I know with Kelsey, they would chip him with a defensive end, which is what the Patriots did last year. And then they would double him. So they would bracket coverage him in some regard, or they would have one linebacker in trail and then another linebacker or safety waiting to pick him up, and then they had double in that regard. So they wanted to take away who they felt was Patrick's most ideal target over the middle. And then in turn, the final step that they took is they used the pass rush, whether it was a three-man front, four rush, maybe they show a blitzer. They tried to get in Patrick Mahomes and the offensive line's head early and tried to bring some pressure so that they would be on edge for a majority of the game at that point. And because of that, they were able to get some nice pressure in some of the A-gaps and some other spots early on against the Chiefs' offensive line. And so there was times where they may look like they were bringing more than three, but they only brought three, and the Chiefs at times still struggled with some of that, and especially off the left side over there. I know Ryder and Irving had some rough goes at time, and overall, it was obviously not the Chiefs' offensive line's best game. And then run-wise, they had the ability to stretch them to the sidelines, but they were going to need some help on the edge more so than I anticipated, and they for the most part they had to pass a lot more, and the passes that were working were the crossing routes, because that's what you can run against what they're doing. You can run crossing routes
all day.
Yeah, against that scheme. So that's what the Chiefs were able to find most of their success when they ran the crossing routes, or you had delays to where coverage would get lost and Kelsey could sneak out or somebody could sneak out.
Deion Yelder early.
Yeah, so you could sneak out in that regard. And so then that's the way the Lions attack the Chiefs. Now, I've gotten a question on Twitter, so I'm going to address it now, is people are asking, is this the blueprint to beat the Chiefs? It is the blueprint to slow them down, but the Chiefs still scored 31 in the AFC Championship against it.
Well, and they scored 34 today. 27 if you don't count the defensive touchdown. But you could call it 30 if you expect to make the field goal that Butker missed as well. So I would also I'm kind of curious here, how much are they missing Tyreek Hill? Because obviously, when you play that deep, you're trying to take away those explosive plays. But Tyreek's a guy who can also exploit that coverage underneath. And if you're going to give Tyreek Hill short to intermediate crossing routes, you're just asking to get carved up. You're just asking for him, to take the ball in stride and run right past your deep safeties anyway. That's not something we saw them that they were able to do today. I think we saw, late in the game on a key first down, McCole Hardman was able to get free on a crossing route and pick it up. But most of the time it was Kelsey over the middle who was making the plays. Kelsey had 7 catches, 85 yards. He had a pretty big game, made some plays late. But how much? Is this the first game we've seen where Tyreek's absence really kind of bit this Chiefs offensive line and maybe even Damian Williams a little bit?
Well, in my opinion, overall, this is the first game where, like you said, the injuries on offense caught up to him, especially Tyreek and Eric Fisher. I think those two both really caught up to him.
We'll talk a little bit more about that offensive line too.
But I think that's where this finally caught up to today, because if you have a healthy Tyreek Hill out there, there's some routes that they had McCole Hardman running that Tyreek would have ran. And there was one where, if you remember, Patrick kind of either escaped to the right or kind of rolled out to the right when Kelsey was staying in to block, and then Mahomes kind of threw it to the spot, and there was nobody, if I remember correctly, there was nobody there. And what I think ended up happening on that play, if it's the one I'm thinking of, the Chiefs ran in the AFC Championship game with Tyreek to where they make it look like a crosser to manipulate the safety, have him turn his hips, and as soon as he turns his hips, they turn it from essentially kind of a post deep crosser into a corner route. So as soon as that happens, then you turn in a corner route and it's wide open on that far side. And Tyreek had a huge play in the second half of the game when the Chiefs ran that. If I remember, I think it was the second half of the game, maybe the first half, but it was in the AFC Championship game.
It had to be second half then.
Yeah. So, but because of that, that was one. That was a route that I recognized, and I'm like, okay, I don't think McCole. I think McCole kept going on that one when he needed to double off of that. So then I think there were some routes that they were trying that they knew would work against that scheme and that they'd done in the past, and I don't think the guys were potentially seeing it the same way.
Yeah, no, they definitely weren't on the same page. I mean, and the Chiefs run a lot of option routes, and either Patrick and the receiver weren't seeing the same things, or there was a mix-up in the call. Because there was another time I know when it looked like I thought where Patrick threw one deep over the right side and early in the game, and Diggs almost got over the safety, almost got over to make a play. There was no one else there, and it looked like he was expecting Watkins in that case to go vertical when the corner after double move after coming in. And then there was another play where he was throwing to a spot, and it looked like rather than make a sharper cut to the outside, McCall Hardman kind of drifted up into the safety. Yeah, he took it vertical right into the safety, and Mahomes was expecting him to go to the open spot, and it ended up being a rather ugly incompletion. But it was clear today that they just weren't always on the same page.
Yes, I don't disagree with that, and some of that could be the pressure too. They kind of bumped up his internal clock a little bit to where he's like, I got to get this ball out a little bit quicker than normal, and I think not having Fisher and not having Tyreek kind of helped part of that.
Yeah, but I will say this. Mahomes made good use of his legs. I mean, that's the one thing they didn't do was keep somebody in, and they, when they would drop 8, Mahomes made him pay. He made him pay early in the game on that rollout when he looked back to see whether the official had thrown the flag, for holding on, I think LDT, and there wasn't a flag. The big 4th and 8 conversion there late in the game. Again, they dropped everybody. Mahomes made him pay with his legs. He had a couple other runs there. Where he actually was almost the leading rusher for the team. He had 9 carries for 54 yards. LaShawn McCoy ended up with 56 yards to lead the team. But big day for Patrick Mahomes with his legs. I mean, do they win without those plays by Patrick Mahomes that he made with his legs?
Especially that last drive, they really needed him to come through. There were some times where he had to step up and Kelsey had to step up, and those two kind of willed this team at times. And that one, the catch Kelsey had, and then he flipped back to McCoy there. Early fourth quarter. That shows the growth of Travis Kelsey and the leadership to where he's putting individual statistics of, on the back burner. He wants to do what's going to help this team get an explosive play to win this football game. So that was one of those big moments in my opinion, that shows the growth of where Travis Kelsey was when he started here to where he's at now.
Last thing, we've mentioned the absence of Fisher. Offensive line wise, how much they need Eric Fisher back because, Andrew Wiley he continues to struggle there at left guard. We know that obviously Cam Irving is a pretty significant step down from Eric Fisher there at left tackle, and then I think that has a cascading effect to Ryder, And then, now you've got 3 out of your 5 offensive linemen. They're either out of position or not functioning, quite as well as you need them to. I mean, how much does Eric Fisher's injury, how much is that putting a monkey wrench in things for this offense in addition to Tyreek being gone?
It is certainly hurting them, and wish them a speedy recovery.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll be back. It was interesting to see. There was video today of pregame of Tyreek out there catching some passes, running some routes, catching the ball over his head. So it looks like that's an encouraging sign, right?
It's an encouraging sign, but I still am gonna remain cautious to where you gotta just make sure everything's in place. So whenever he starts taking hits, that nothing.
Yeah, a couple more weeks off at least. Make sure that's good and healed up, but. But yeah, I mean, it's at least encouraging. The fact that he's lifting his hands over his head with the injury he had, anything to the clavicle there, trying to reach over your head is going to be pretty painful for a while. The fact that he's able to do that now is an encouraging sign, I think.
It's a good start, but I would caution the.
I think Schefter had a report that they've already expected they're ruling him out against Indy, and potentially farther down the road, but. Definitely you want him back maybe late October. Love to have him for that Green Bay game, probably.
Green Bay game's kind of the one where I'm hoping he'll be back for, but whatever it takes for him to be fully healthy is where you want that to be.
Yeah. So AFC divisional playoff.
If they can make it to that
By
point,
then,
sure.
yeah, before then. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about with the offense? Yeah, like I said, it was what I thought was encouraging was, I mean, how many times did people complain about the Chiefs not being able to operate a 2-minute offense under Alex Smith, not being able to get points at the end of quarters, at the end of halves, into game when they needed it, and we've seen it consistently when the Chiefs need to go down and make hay. I mean, that's 3 weeks in a row. They've got the ball with under 2 minutes to go, and they've gone down and gotten points out of it to end the first half. And then today, when they needed to do it at the end of the game to win it, they found a way again.
They have a quarterback that is always that's always going to will this team to success, or at least do his best to.
Right, it worked today. So, yay, Patrick Mahomes. Let's take a break. Welcome back to 4th and 1. I'm Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. Nick, talked about the offense. Now let's look at the defense. First, let's just start with the run defense. What are you seeing from that group, and how concerned are you about the run defense? I mean, we saw once again today the Chiefs continue to run right at the right side.
The opponents are Lions.
Well, the Lions run to the right, so the defensive left side. So we saw it again today that people continue to exploit that side. I mean that's the Raiders, the Ravens, now the Lions. They're all going right at Alex Okafor, going right at that side. Where's the trouble? I mean, is this a problem with the defensive line on that side? Should the linebackers be doing more? I mean, where do you see the biggest issue?
Well, what teams are doing is they're doubling the defensive tackle, and then at times they're either doubling Okafor or they're kicking him out, and that's where a lot of that concern's coming from, is they're able to control the line of scrimmage on that side, and those guys aren't getting penetration in the gaps, so they're not controlling the line of scrimmage. I feel like when Emmanuel Ogbah's out there, he actually is a really solid run defender, and I think he kind of helps that edge.
He's playing well. Is he the best defensive line trade pickup they got this offseason?
Yeah, I'd say he's one of the top two.
So far, I mean, he's outshining Frank Clark a little bit at times, isn't he?
Well, that's because Frank Clark's commanding some double teams.
Well, and people aren't running it at Frank Clark's side as much.
There's a reason why they're not running it at the side.
And I would point out that when the last two games, we've seen Spagnuolo move Clark over to the left side of the defense, and teams have had less success running to the right once they move Clark over there, because he sets an edge. He sets an edge better than Okafor, for instance.
And what the teams are trying, what the Lions are trying to do today, and I think some other teams are going to pick up on it, is they brought in 2 and 3 tight end sets to Frank Clark's side, and they just down blocked on him with the tackle and tried to wash him out so that they could get the edge in that regard. And then there was a couple times where they pulled either the guard or tackle, and then they had somebody down block on Okafor at end, and then they just kind of went out into space in that regard on the weak side of their alignment. So, I mean, there's teams are going to continue to be creative and try things, but they have found the pattern of running at the right side. They consider that a weakness of this team. So the Chiefs are going to have to start making some decisions at D tackle and DN about how they want to handle that. And there were a couple times where the Chiefs had some alignments that were right, and what the Lions were doing is they would just stretch it out to the left, and since the pursuit and cutback wasn't there on the backside, then they were able to cut back off that. So, I mean, that's going to have to be cleaned up. They're going to have to. I think D tackle and DN wise on the right side. They're going to have to find some answers.
Do they have the personnel to fix it? Do you see a solution there? I mean, is there somebody that can move inside? Is there somebody that's inside? Do you put Chris Jones? Do you play him outside a little bit more? I mean, is there anything they can do personnel-wise that you think can help them shore up that left side of the defensive line?
Well, I think what I talked about in our last podcast is that I'm open to putting Ogbah out there at DN, but I'm also open to putting him out there at D tackle sometimes and bumping Jones out to end. So, I mean, those are things that I would be encouraged with them trying, and I'd be all for them trying. And then it's in all honesty, I think I know people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I truly believe losing Breeland Speaks kind of messed up a little bit of that rotation to where he was a strong, stout guy that could probably handle the double teams, and at times he could when I watched him at camp, and he could walk an offensive lineman back into the quarterback. So I think losing that ability to collapse the pocket with him and some of the run defense that I think Xavier Williams has had to pick up for him, I think that's actually hurt him more than people realize.
Yeah, it'd be nice if Colin Saunders, could be useful, but so far he's remained inactive. So, do you think he'll be? Do you think Colin Saunders is going to make an impact at all this year?
Well, like I've told people, I think it's on Twitter and maybe on here too. I've always expected to be somewhere between week 8 to 12 before you kind of could rely on him on a regular basis to help make an impact. And I think they still are counting on that for the backstretch and hoping for it. And I think they're going to try to work towards it and continue coaching him to where they can potentially use him in some regard to where they can be a good run defender and kind of maintain the line of scrimmage, or he can be one of those gap penetrators. And that's something that I think they're also going to have to kind of decide if they want to penetrate the gaps and just start attacking gaps more so in a way that they really haven't yet. And at times they kind of did in some regard, and where they had some run blitzes today that were really good that they kind of forced the lines to go where they wanted to. And I saw them adding some things to try to slow down the run that they hadn't in previous weeks. And so I was encouraged by some of the adjustments they made down the road there that some people are, it's going to be lost.
Well, and the pass rush showed up in some pretty key moments, some pretty key third downs, whether it was Tyrann Mathieu sack or Chris Jones had one.
Mm-hmm.
They had some pretty key moments where they came up with some big stops. Are you ready to pay Chris Jones?
He had some bright moments, but we're going to have to continue to maintain that. He's going to have to continue to improve in his run defense.
He's been playing pretty well.
Really? Because if I bring up the coach's film, we can go over some of the times he's getting double teamed.
We can. I mean, but I think you can nitpick any player that you want me to go pull up. I can go find you some throws where Patrick Mahomes missed too, if you want to nitpick every little thing that somebody does.
I'm just telling you, if you're commanding a certain amount of dollar, you got to play a certain way.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, though, I mean, Frank Clark. I mean, are federal marshals protecting him when he's on the field because he hasn't been a $21 million man yet?
Since we're going to go down this road now.
I'm just saying, you keep saying that about Chris Jones, but I mean, they are paying a guy on that defensive line, and I don't think you're getting the kind of production you would have hoped for out of him yet.
And what I will say in response to that is that he gets a lot of double teams, and he gets the teams do a lot of chips off him, and they do a lot of other stuff.
But don't they do that to Chris Jones too?
It all depends. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Well, you were just saying that it's the double teams against Chris Jones that you were going to point out to me on coach's film. So I'm just saying.
In the run defense, yeah.
I think they do some of the same things to Chris Jones too, but he still is making more impactful plays more often than we've seen from Frank Clark so far. So what does Frank Clark need to do to kind of be that alpha that the Chiefs were hoping they got when they traded for him?
Well, what I think they're going to need is some help on the opposite side of him so that he can start seeing more of the one-on-ones that people expect him to be dominant on.
Do you think I could help him?
No, I really don't.
I just want to see the look on your face. All right, let's talk about the secondary then real quick.
Yes, let's.
They do get some help this week. Is Morris Claiborne the savior of the Chiefs defense? Because he's back from suspension this week. And realistically, how much do you even expect him to play against Indianapolis?
See, here's what I'm going to stop it right now. I know. Look, he hasn't played in a month. He's not up to football condition. I'm not saying he won't see the field. I'm not saying he wouldn't be out there. I'm not saying that he won't have some opportunity. All I'm saying at the end of the day is let's not put all our hopes and dreams on him to fix everything.
All right, so if what I'm hearing you say...
No, exactly. I already know this is not going to go well.
No, but I mean, Charvarius Ward's going to remain the starter. You'd expect him to be the starter at least for this week, so right?
It would not surprise me if he's not the starter for a couple more weeks and Claiborne rotates in some spots.
Yeah. But, I mean, Ward's still going to have to play an important role either way moving forward, isn't he? I mean,
unless they trade for somebody, yes, he's going to continue to be a part of the defense in a bigger way than I think fans would want.
And what do you expect? I mean, they're going to have to create a spot for him. So, I mean, how is this? Where do you see some, fat to trim on this roster right now?
You mean who I think they're going to get rid of?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do. I do believe they have like 10 offensive linemen, and I think they're going to have to move away from remove one of them at some point.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, somebody like Ryan Hunter may be looking at going back to the practice squad, or if he clears waivers.
I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell there, Todd.
All right. I like to I like to put you on the spot, Nick. Speaking of which, Johnny on the spot at one point was Bashad Breeland. He's another guy. He's had his ups and downs, but how critical was that play there? I mean, taking away almost a certain touchdown for the Lions, and the heads up play to go and scoop that ball up and return it for a touchdown. I mean, that's the difference in the game, right?
It won them the game right there. It's one of the three things that won them the game.
So he deserves a pat on the back, at least, right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to keep that from him.
What else about the defense? Any thoughts immediately? I know you haven't got a chance to watch coach film, but
I know there are some discouraged fans out there on Twitter. I know some that think this defense is worse than Bob Sutton's. It's not, I promise you.
I wouldn't never go that far.
I know I've already got somebody that given me a hashtag fire Spags at this point, 4 games into it.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, like I've said, and I'm going to continue to say, it's going to be a process for the entire year. Where this team's at right now, they're not going to be at the end of the year. Do they need to make some additions down the road? Probably. They may make them this year, maybe next year, maybe who knows. But I mean, they're going to improve to an extent, and they're going to. I mean, it's 4 games. It's 4 games. Or were they dominant? Were they Super Bowl champion Seahawks? No. The Super Bowl champion Seahawks team got time to evolve into what they became. So, I mean, do I have some concerns at D tackle and DN a little bit, and they're going to have to work on some rotation there? And do I have concerns about what they're going to do for Charvarius Ward at the cornerback spot? You bet. But I mean, I think there's still opportunity to improve and get better.
And I will say this: one of my first of all, Tyrann Mathieu has played really well. And I think he had some more bright moments today. I know he gave up a touchdown there on a slant, but I think he was expecting some help. Wasn't real happy. But one of the things that maybe my favorite play of the game was Juan Thornhill. Here's a rookie in his 4th NFL game, has a chance to get his first interception, and instead at the end of the game just swats the ball to the turf because it was the smarter, safer play to make sure that team first, team won the game. I thought that was kind of, you talked about Travis Kelce and the flip he made to LaShawn McCoy and a guy not caring about his stats. I think the same could be said for Juan Thornhill. He's a guy that I think he continues to impress. I know, look, he has missed tackle every once in a while, but he's a guy that continues to really impress, I think.
Yeah, it was another one of those moments, like you said, where 2 players are showing that the team's more important than their individuality, which is a great thing to see.
It's more important than the rest of this B block. It's a quick break, so let's take it. Welcome back to 4th and 1. I'm Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. Nick, get off the phone.
I'm going to have to check the tweets somehow at some point.
We got to talk about special teams first, though.
All right, then let me know when cue me up properly when we're going to check the tweets.
Deal. Are you concerned about special teams? Because we saw Harrison Butker miss a chip shot field goal that kind of killed some momentum and prevented them from scoring in the first quarter for the 3rd straight week. We pretty much every time the Chiefs have a return, they either fumble it or they commit a penalty, sometimes both. They had 2 fumbles today. DeAnthony Thomas fumbled one. The Chiefs recovered it. McCole Hardman Jr. fumbled the opening kickoff of the second half. We always kind of give special teams a pass. Dave Tobe, obviously, one of the, probably on in terms of special teams coaches in NFL history, probably on the Mount Rushmore of those guys. But is this a growing concern for you?
If it continues down this way, it may cost them a game if they play another opponent that's like the New England Patriots on a tight, close game or a playoff type game. Yeah, it would start to become a growing concern at that point if it starts becoming a trend. In that regard, I would prefer not to see the blocks in the back anymore, but that unfortunately has become more of a hallmark and trademark of the special teams in some regard. But they got to get it fixed. I mean, with as much time as special teams has dedicated to them, and as many players that are quality special teams guys that are on the roster, that definitely needs to improve.
One thing that doesn't need to be fixed is Dustin Colquitt. He had a higher net average than a gross punting average today, which means not only was his coverage fantastic, but his direct he continues to be a rock star. I don't know if you're aware, played the most games of any Chief in franchise history.
Congrats to Dustin Colquitt on that one. I am terribly surprised you brought up Dustin Colquitt in the 4th and 1 podcast.
Shocking. I know, right? Shocking. Do you have time to check the tweets still, or do we got to go?
No, yeah, we got time.
It's more of a rhetorical.
Charlie Jones on this edition of Check the Tweets. Charlie Jones asked, "Did the Chiefs overlook the Lions?" I know I did. Charlie Jones, not me.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, they hadn't lost a game this year. They just beat the Chargers, who a lot of people expect to be the best team. The biggest challenger to the Chiefs in the AFC West. I don't know that they overlooked them. I just think that maybe they looked at film and they thought they would be able to do things a little bit easier, and then it didn't work out that way, And I think also, you talk about every week how teams come out and they want to throw their best punch. I mean,
no, yeah, they do. They do. Every team does against.
I mean, look, that's a team that's proud. Matt Stafford is a pretty good quarterback. And look, he in a lot of respects outplayed Patrick Mahomes today, at least if you look at the stat line. So, I mean, I think you give the Lions credit. I think the Lions played one of the better games they're going to play this year. They got a little unlucky. I mean, you think about the touchdown that was overturned on replay, and then the very next play, Stafford fumbles it, Chris Jones picks it up. That's a huge stop right there. Those were some game-changing plays that the defense made. And then also, we already talked about Bashaud Breeland. I mean, the Lions, I think, deserved to win that football game. That they didn't is a testament to the defense making some timely interceptions and that Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes.
All right, our next question comes from Vader Nick. Vader Nick.
Is this like your burner account?
you asked this last time when the person asked the question too. Good job, Todd. So Vader Nick asked, could Reggie Ragland be better for this team than Anthony Hitchens?
I mean, could a ham sandwich be better than Anthony Hitchens at times? Yes. So I still think, look, Ragland is a liability in coverage. We talked about it. That's an easy matchup. If you put Ragland on the field, they're going to try to isolate him in a coverage situation. And he did an okay job on the fullback today. But if he gets stuck on a back out of the backfield or a tight end, it's not going to end well for the Chiefs most of the time. So, but look, I mean, would it be the worst thing in the world if they mixed him in a little bit more? Probably not, because I mean, Anthony Hitchens has yet to distinguish himself in my eyes.
All right, now I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong, but I'm going to give it two different options, so hopefully one of them will be right. This question comes from Mark Debrick, or it could be Debrick. I prefer Debrick because it sounds awesome.
I think you're supposed to say Vandelay Industries.
But anyways, Mark asked, does it seem like Mahomes is showing more frustration on the field with other players than in the past?
Well, I mean, the last 2 weeks, yeah, you've seen the cameras have caught it a little bit more. But I think they haven't scored in the first quarter of the last 3 games. This is the team that's used to getting off the fast starts. This is the team that's used to dictating, the course of the game a little bit more. They're used to playing from ahead, and they haven't been. And so I think Patrick Mahomes knows that they can play better, and I think he is trying to cajole his teammates into doing so.
Next one comes from a guy who calls himself Casey Wolf, but I do not believe he's the actual mascot Casey Wolf. But I'm going to say KC asked, did the Lions just reveal the playbook to beating the Chiefs?
Well, no, the Patriots did in Week 6 last week and in the AFC Championship game.
Last year, you mean?
Yeah, sorry. Week 6 last year and the AFC Championship game last year.
Did I break my wrist again?
We're stuck in a loop. We're reliving this podcast over and over. It's like Groundhog Day. But no, I mean, the Patriots are the ones that I think have shown the blueprint for what you need to do. At least they've been the most successful. And I think the Lions copied parts of it. I do think there's also something to the fact that part of, and I didn't get a chance to ask Patrick Mahomes, but part of why they were off a little bit today may have had to do with depth perception in a dome or something like that. But that's not a bad thing, because eventually you're hoping that he's going to play lots of Super Bowls and lots of domes. So you want him to get used to that.
All right, no, I'm going to do 2 more questions if you keep them.
Oh, man, let's go. Okay, I'll keep them short. All right, here we go.
I sure hope so. Andrew asks, can this run defense, as it currently looks, stop the Patriots' rushing attack that wrecked us in the AFC Championship?
No.
Okay.
They can't stop anybody. So yeah, they're not going to stop the Patriots either. No.
And a member of my entourage in high school, Patrick Stevens, asked, he's not worried this was a trap game, survive and move on. The last drive was an MVP drive, but he asked, what do you think we do with the offensive line? Move Irving or just wait until Fisher gets back?
I mean, wait until Fisher gets back at this point. I don't know what – I mean, unless you're going to put Jeff Allen out there, I don't know who else you're going to put at tackle at this point. You know, I mean, you're paying Irving to be the backup, you know, the versatile backup, so to speak. So, I mean, I think he's your best option right now. And it may not be a great option, but I still think he's your best option right now.
All right, and this is more of a statement, but it is based on something you brought up earlier in the podcast. It comes from Stinson Dean, a former great quarterback at Blue Springs.
And Mid-American Nazarene University.
In Central Missouri. And he was at Wyoming for a little bit. But
I covered him at MNU. That's how I know.
And I hung out with him in college.
All right, well, brag much?
We mended our...
That wasn't even a humble brag.
And actually, as adults, too. Even though he has a family and like 4 kids now that all look like him and Stephanie. But so Stinson's statement is, go watch film from past few games. Mahomes will take a peek in his blind spot when he breaks the pocket to check for rushers, not to look at refs.
No, I actually apparently my tweet was added to the Twitter moment about that. I in the moment when I saw him turn around, I did not think he was actually looking for a flag. I know we joked about that earlier, but I did think he was looking to make sure that there wasn't a backside rusher coming to crush him from behind. I think it was more about personal safety than worrying about whether a flag had been thrown.
And that was one of the more longer ones we've done in quite some time because, you know, we had
check the tweets?
We had a little bit more time. I'm not under a deadline. So that's all for this edition of Check the Tweets. Todd, any final thoughts?
You know, I'm disappointed the Chiefs haven't won a game 79-0 yet, but I think it's coming. I still, you know, whether you want to call it a trap game or whether you just want to say that the Lions are a better opponent than people give them credit for, I think that this is the kind of game that the Chiefs absolutely before Patrick Mahomes. So BPM before Patrick Mahomes. They would have lost. I think that's a kind of game that they go on the road and they lose.
Can you tell me? Can you give me that acronym again?
BPM.
Beats per minute. It's not beats per minute.
No,
anymore?
it's before Patrick Mahomes. So Chiefs history. I think right now you have BPM and APM, and before Patrick Mahomes and after Patrick Mahomes. I think everything, you know, that there's a clear delineation there.
There's that $5 word for today. Got him.
So, but look, that's absolutely a game that I think in years past they lose, even with Alex Smith. And you and I are both had a lot more respect for the job that Alex Smith did for this franchise and the caliber of quarterback he is in the NFL than I think the average fan does. But having said that, that's the kind of game that they don't win under previous quarterback regimes. So credit them for getting it done. Check the box, move on. Hopefully, it can also serve as a bit of a wake-up call. That it was much closer than they expected, and that they had to work a little bit harder. But those kind of games help. You need those kind of games to test yourself, to build camaraderie, and to build trust with the guy next to you. That hey, when the game was on the line, when it mattered the most, as poorly as that offensive line has played, they found a way to power to open the holes to get Darrell Williams in the end zone. They found a way to protect Mahomes long enough that he could make the plays he needed to make, whether it was on 4th and 8 or whether it was down the seam to Travis Kelce. All encourage. I think at the end of the day, you take encouragement out of that, you move on and hope they perform a little bit better, get off to a little bit faster start against Indianapolis.
All right, and my final thought I would give is I was impressed with the Lions' ability to punch the football out and how they found the right time. They found the right. Oh my goodness! I'm glad nobody could see that. That's
on the OTT.
Right, well, they're driving in their car. Todd. They're not watching OTT. We went over this podcast after podcast.
No, I mean, can't they do? Aren't the Teslas like Wi-Fi enabled or something? I don't know.
I don't know because they can't afford a Tesla, Todd. Thanks for reminding me of that one too.
I rode in one on Uber once.
Congrats! Yeah. I didn't even know you used Uber.
I had to, and my car broke down. I needed to get back home, and I'll be honest. If I'm being honest, I didn't know how to open the door.
In all fairness, that's a struggle you have daily. Not just
that's true. I really sometimes I can't even get out of the podcast studio for like a half hour.
Anybody seen Todd? I think he locked himself into the studio again.
He locked himself in the bathroom stall. They have to come with a popsicle stick and open it for me.
So, but my final thought before Todd took us off the train.
I really wish you would stop to run the podcast
I
there.
know, so frustrating. I was really impressed with how the Lions punched the ball out. I mean, the Lions they copied Belichick's blueprint in a way that I didn't expect them to. So for me personally, I'm really, really curious down the stretch now when the Chiefs have the Packers, Vikings, and now the Titans, because I think the Titans are going to take a lot of what the Lions did and what the Patriots did last year. And if they have Tyreek back by that time, I think I'm kind of curious to see if they have the players back from injury and they stay healthy that time. I'm curious to see what the difference is against the Titans in that regard. But above all else, like you said, I think you said it perfectly, is that this team needed to know where they're at in terms of playoff caliber. And I think they got a really, 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 really good test against the Lions and a reminder of where New England could potentially be at scheme-wise. I understand they're not the New England Patriots, but I think it was a reality check for a lot of those guys that this is the type of effort that New England's going to give. This is the type of effort you play in the AFC Championship. So I think I'm hoping it gives them more of a laser focus going forward. Because I'm going to be honest, I know I said on the podcast last week that I felt that the Chiefs could take this game and be up 35-0 at halftime. And in some ways, they probably could have been if they had just a certain level that they went into that game with and everybody healthy probably. But they went out and they took the Lions' best shot, which was a lot of what the Patriots schemed with in previous years with that defense, and they found they willed themselves to a victory. And the Lions, it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, because I hope they take some positives out of it, because they can legitimately contend in the NFC North.
That
they
NFC
play like
North
that on a regular basis.
The NFC North nails. I mean, everybody in that division is above 500 right now. You got the Packers and the Bears at 3-1. The Lions are at 2-1-1. The Vikings at 2-2. That's a good division.
And while we are taping this podcast, there's still technically 4 teams that remain undefeated. We will see what Dallas does on Sunday Night Football against the Saints, but the Chiefs, Patriots both beat undefeated teams and remained undefeated at 4-0. The Rams fell today against the Buccaneers. The 49ers are on a bye week, so there are 4 left in the land of unbeaten still. At the taping of the podcast. There might be 3 afterwards.
Impressive that D Ford has got the 49ers undefeated.
Yes. Yeah, it's all D Ford.
All right. We'll talk more about that later in the week when we do a special D Ford podcast here on 4th and 1.